What's up guys, welcome to my channel, The Relatable Vegan. I'm Erica and I share lots of vegan content to help you and your family live your happiest, healthiest lives. Today we're going to be continuing our Thanksgiving series and we're going to be making some side dishes for Thanksgiving. We're going to start with some roasted squash with a cherry balsamic glaze. Now you might have seen a bunch of different squash in the supermarket lately and not have any idea what to do with it. So butternut squash, pumpkin, those are all pretty familiar. But today we're going to be using an acorn squash and a delicata squash to start with. So the first thing we're going to do is take a 1/4 cup of hazelnuts and we're going to roast these in the oven. So you want to set your temperature of your oven to 350 degrees. And then you're just going to pour your hazelnuts right onto your pan. And we're going to stick that in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes until they become fragrant. Now while our hazelnuts are cooking in the oven, we're going to cut our squash. So you just want to cut each squash in half lengthwise. Just like that. Once you get your squash cut in half, you're going to notice that the inside almost looks like a pumpkin where it has a bunch of seeds. So you're just going to take a spoon and scoop out all of those seeds. So once you've de-seeded your squash, it will look like this. And both the skin of the acorn squash and the delicata squash are edible, so you don't have to worry about peeling it. Just gonna cut them in half lengthwise again. And once they're cut in half, you're going to cut them into about 1-inch strips. Once your squash is all cut up, you're going to transfer it into a bowl. You're going to drizzle a tablespoon of olive oil over the top and sprinkle with some salt and a little bit of pepper. And go ahead and mix it together until everything is coated nice and evenly. Okay, so we've taken our hazelnuts out of the oven and we've increased our oven temperature to 400 degrees. So now you're going to take your squash and spread it evenly onto a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. And you're going to roast these for about 25 to 30 minutes or until they are nice and tender. While those are roasting, we're going to go ahead and cut up a shallot. The rest of the ingredients that you're going to need for your glaze are 3 tablespoons of dried tart cherries, 6 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper chili flakes, which is optional. After taking your hazelnuts out of the oven, you want to place them on a nice, clean dish towel, and then you're going to rub them together inside the dish towel to release the skins. Once the skins have been released, this is what they will look like. And you can either use a food processor or a knife to just coarsely chop these up for later. While our squash is cooking in the oven, we're going to get started on our glaze. So you're going to take a small saucepan over medium heat and add about 2 teaspoons of olive oil. And then you're going to add your shallots into the pan. We're going to cook those for about 5 minutes. Once your shallots have gotten nice and brown, we're going to add in our balsamic vinegar, your maple syrup, your cherries, and your red pepper flakes. I'm going to give that a nice stir and then bring that back up to a boil. Once your mixture starts to boil, you want to turn it down to a simmer and let that simmer for about 10 minutes until it becomes a nice thick syrup. Alright guys, our squash has come out of the oven. It's nice and browned. And we have our glaze, which has turned into a nice thick syrup. So we're gonna go ahead and put our squash in a bowl. Once you've got your squash all in a bowl, we're gonna take the glaze and go ahead and pour that over the squash. And then you're going to fold it together nice and gently until everything is well coated. And like I said at the beginning of the video, you can eat the skins of the squash, so feel free to get everything nice and coated with that glaze. And then you're going to top it with your hazelnuts. And there you have a beautiful side dish for Thanksgiving. And I will say those red pepper flakes definitely give it some heat, so if you don't want any spice in this, definitely feel free to leave those out. Alright guys, the next squash recipe that we're going to make is actually honey nut squash. And you might have seen these in the store and they look like teeny tiny little baby butternut squashes, but they're actually honey nut squash and they have a more caramely sweet flavor than butternut squash. And I think they would be so perfect for Thanksgiving because you could easily just give each person a half one on the side of their plate and they could just scoop the flesh out and eat it and it would just be super delicious. So in order to make these, you want to cut the tops off so you're getting rid of the big stem right there. And then once you've cut off the stems, you're going to cut these in half. They're actually much easier to cut than a butternut squash as well. If you've ever had to peel and cut a butternut squash before, you know what I'm talking about. And same thing with all the other squash. You're going to see a bunch of seeds inside there that you're going to scoop out with a spoon. And once you've scooped it out, you can go ahead and line it on a baking tray lined with tin foil. Once you've scooped out all your seeds, you're just going to take either some avocado oil or some olive oil and drizzle it over each one. And then just make sure you rub the inside with the oil so that the whole inside is covered. A little bit goes a long way, so you definitely don't need too much oil. And you're gonna sprinkle them with some salt and pepper. And then you want to turn them upside down. And then you're gonna put these in an oven that's been preheating for 425 degrees. For about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how big your squash are. All right guys, our honey nut squash has just come out of the oven. It was in there for about 25 minutes. They're looking super cute, super adorable. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put these onto a plate. If I were making these for Thanksgiving, I think one way that would be super delicious is, since they have these little caverns in them, I think it would be super good to put your stuffing in there and then ladle some homemade cranberry sauce over the top. I think that would just be absolutely delicious. Or if you wanted to use these for more of a dessert dish, I think some coconut yogurt with some candied pecans or candied walnuts in there would be super yummy. So I hope you guys try these little honey nut squash the next time that you see them at your grocery store. Give them a try. Alright guys, so the last squash recipe that we're going to be making today is going to use Carnival Squash, and we're actually going to be making a dessert recipe. So you're going to need 2 Carnival Squash. I have 3 Fiji apples that I sliced and put into a bowl. You're going to need some chopped up walnuts, about 3 teaspoons of maple syrup, a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then I have some melted vegan butter here. I like to use the Earth Balance soy-free one. That's the one that we like. And then just some salt and pepper, and also some fresh thyme leaves. So just like with all the other squash, the first thing we're gonna do is cut these guys in half. And then again, these are going to be filled with some seeds that you're going to go ahead and scoop out with a spoon. Okay, so now that all of your squash have been cut open and you've taken the seeds out, kind of messed up on this guy, didn't get him exactly in half, so try to make your cuts a little better than mine. You're going to take, you're going to grab a baking tray and line it with parchment paper. I'm just going to use one that we used for our previous squash. So you're going to set your oven to 375. You're going to take your butter and a brush and brush the insides of your squash with the butter. Get it nice and coated. Once your squash are all buttered up, you're going to take a sprig of thyme for each one and put it on the inside of your squash. And then we're gonna bake these in the oven for 15 minutes. And then we'll pull them out and stuff them with the apples and put them back in the oven. So 375 for 15 minutes to start. You also wanna sprinkle these with a little bit of salt. While those are baking in the oven, you're gonna take your apples. Like I said, I used 3 Fiji apples, but you can pretty much use just your favorite variety of apple. You're gonna take your maple syrup, your cinnamon, and the rest of your vegan butter. And you're gonna go ahead and mix that all together. This is what it will look like. Alright guys, our Carnival Squash have been baking for 15 minutes. You can go ahead and pull out those thyme leaves. Alright, so now we're going to take our apple mixture and we're going to stuff it inside the squash. I have a little bit of extra apples, so I'm just going to pop these into a little baking dish and put them in the oven. They make a great side dish. So we're going to put these guys back into the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes until the apples are nice and caramelized and the squash is nice and soft. Alright guys, we just pulled our Carnival Squash out of the oven. They're looking super tasty. I found that I had to cook it for about 35 minutes to get the squash nice and soft. So just monitor every 10 minutes or so and make sure that your squash and your apples are getting nice and soft. So I'm just going to go ahead and plate these up. And then I think it would be really good topped with some vanilla ice cream. We like this so delicious. And some walnuts sprinkled over the top. Super delicious. I hope you guys found this video helpful and that you have lots of ideas for that yummy squash that you find at the store and make some yummy Thanksgiving sides for your Thanksgiving dinner. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, and in the comments down below, let me know what you're making for Thanksgiving. And please subscribe to my channel because I'll be uploading new videos every single week. Bye!